we were talking about this levels of signifiers or orders of signifiers. And that is, this is always the question right here, which is, what are you reading for meaning? Now, as I was preparing for today, I found a handout which I'll pass out here to you guys. Maybe some of the couples will share here. I don't know if I have enough. Marge, I'm going to have you run a couple of copies, please.
Okay.
I can do that. She's small the photograph. So,
Okay.
Where's the copy?
Here.
Okay. Let me just see here. Types of signifiers and aspects or levels of meaning in text. Now, these are the three levels that we talked about. You're reading the words on the page, you're reading the deeds, or the fact that a person is doing that. Now, you'll notice on the sheet that I'm handing out, for the sake of precision, I have chosen to give a different name to each of these so you know the level you're operating on. Most people use the word meaning for everything. I tend not to use the word meaning. I tend to use these three words and then use meaning as a kind of a general synonym. Good. Oh, this is great. Thank you. Okay, good. You guys need another one back?
No, we're good.
Okay, good.
Sure.
All right. Now, so when you're on level 1, I like to call this sense. The sense of the text. What's the sense of the text? That means the meanings of the words. So let's see what I've got here. This is the most basic aspect or level of meaning and concerns the overt meaning of the words. What the text is saying. Thus Luke 7:14-15 means, and he, Jesus said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak. Now, when you read those words with me, they don't mean the disciples went to buy bread. See? So, you're just talking about the overt meaning of the marks on the page. When we are concerned with this most basic aspect, we read the words on the page as signifiers, or to be more precise, and speak in Voelz here, the signifiers the reader reads are the marks on the page. And I like to call that the sense of the text. Now, that's important. It is the entree to everything, because right now I give you a text in Arabic or in Korean. You cannot read those marks on the page, so you can't get any further. Level 1 stops you. You've got to be competent on level 1, which is why I never stopped being a grammarian. Because being a grammarian means you are dealing with the foundational level stuff. But if I may put it this way, that's not where you make your money. Where you make your money is on level 2. Significance. So I tend to use the word significance, not to mean what does the text mean to me, what's the significance for you, but I use it to denote the level to me. This is a more important aspect of meaning and concerns itself with the meaning of what is described or depicted. You can put the word depicted down there by the words as signifiers. The meanings of the activities depicted. Because actions have meanings in and of themselves, they may be read even as words are read, and we say actions speak louder than words. We all know this. In the text from Luke above, the significance of the activity described, that is, the resurrection of the young boy, is theological. What that is in fact given in verse 16b. God has visited his people. The crowd could read the activity. Or to put it another way, there wasn't somebody standing there with a sign like this. God has visited his people, and then the people could read on level 1 what that meant. See? They could read the activity. Now, I call that level 2 because when we deal with texts, you can only access that activity through reading the words on level 1. If you're there live, I don't know, I guess you could call it level 2, but you're looking at it directly. It's not through the medium of words at all at that point. So I don't know if I'd call that level 2, but I would still say it's significance. Talking about significance of the deeds. Okay, here we are concerned with the meaning of the actions in the narrative as signifiers, described or depicted by the words on the page. That's the sense key right there. Let's do that sentence again. Here we are concerned with the meanings of the actions in the narrative. The meaning of the actions in the narrative as themselves signifiers, described or depicted by the words on the page. Now, look at that nota bene there, note well. This does not mean to say either that the narrative is non-historical or that only historical narratives convey significance by their deeds. See, I'm not making a historical judgment. You can do this even if you're dealing with something like a fairy tale or something like that. Or all of a sudden you have, let's say, a story about wizards or something. Well, if somebody draws a sword and comes menacingly at someone in the story, you'd say, well, that person is threatening the person. You're not making some judgment of historical accuracy. You're just talking about the meaning of the deeds in the narrative. Okay? Now, that level is the level at which the Gospels, generally speaking, operate. All right? I am happy, this is not a detour, this is an entree. I am happy to announce to this group, my faithful class, that on Friday, I sent in the completed manuscript of Mark, Volume 2. Yes. And one of the last things I dealt with was I fine-tuned the pericope on the death of Jesus and the rending of the veil of the temple. This is a classic level 2 problem, the rending of the veil. There are 26 different interpretations. Why? Because there's no level 1. At no point if you think of here, level 1, here's a good way. I never thought of actually putting it on the board like this before, but this is pretty good. This level 1 is what we say when we use this phrase. In so many words. So you say, now, you never said it in so many words. What do you mean by that? On level 1. See? Level 2 is our saying, actions speak louder than words. That's level 2. Actions speak louder than words. Jessica, I think we don't have one of these.
Okay.
Can you get this for you? And the only reason I call it level 2 is when you're reading a narrative, you access it through the words on the page. So, I mean, it was interesting to me when I was doing, reviewing again this pericope, and I've got my own understanding of it, but I was giving what some other people were doing and so on like that. Generally speaking, on this rending of the veil of the temple, for most people, it falls into one of two general categories. I would say the one group talks about something like this, that we now have unfettered access to God. You can see the holy place or holy quarters. And then there's another group that sees it essentially as negative. This is the beginning of the destruction of the temple that Jesus prophesied. Or it's the end of the old covenants, something like that. Now I personally think that while those may be right, it's kind of essentially the second one's better than the first one, I think. But I go to Isaiah 64:1 with this fabulous statement by Isaiah, "Oh, that you would rend the heavens and come down." And on the curtain of the temple was a tapestry of all the heavenly scenes. See, now most people don't know that, but in Josephus' War, Book 5, section 210 to 214, there is a complete description of the wonderful veil of the temple woven in 4 different colors of Babylonian thread. It was blue, purple, red, and linen color, depicting all of the elements of the universe and depicting all the sights of the heavens with the exception of the zodiac, because I think they didn't want, that sort of association. So, when the veil tears, the heavens are split in the same way that the story begins in Mark 1 with the rending of the heavens and the voice saying, "This is my beloved Son." And what happens at the end of the earthly life of Jesus? The heavens rend, and the centurion says, "Truly this man was the Son of God." Ba-boom. Okay, now, I can't prove any of that in so many words. There is no level 1 text that says, and when the veil of the temple was rent, that meant that God was doing a revelation of himself. See, I don't have it in so many words. So, what happens when you are dealing on this level is you don't have, as I said last time, a deeds dictionary or lexicon. Temple, veil, rending of, and there it is. You don't have that, see? So the minute you don't have it, it is this semiotic free-for-all. Now the same thing happens, folks. The same thing happens with the other great pericope, unit of text, that I think has this same effect, and that is the turning water into wine in the wedding of Cana. What is the meaning of that? Well, you can come up with all kinds of meanings, but it doesn't say in so many words in the text. All it says is that the disciples saw and believed. Okay? But it's not saying what it was exactly. Now, on this one, my own feeling is you're best going to Amos 9, where there is a description. I'm doing level 2 with level 2. Okay? There's a description of the great last times when the hills will run with sweet wine and the reaper will overtake the sower. The wine, time of great abundance, when the final eschatological time becomes present. In Jesus, you get the foretaste. In Jesus, you get the down payment in his ministry. Okay, I can't prove that in so many words, though. See? And I did this in class, and a guy raised his hand about 15 years ago. He said, "Prof, I've always thought of it another way. Jesus took water, simplest possible element, made wine, fantastic stuff. God took dust and made man and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." So my reading of that text is, here the Creator who takes something basic and simple and produces something wonderful and complex, that Creator is standing in our midst again. Geez, that's pretty good. I mean, is that right? I don't know. See, you don't have it in so many words. But Mike, see, here's the thing. There's enough lagniappe in all of this, and you got to be flexible to say, could be. This isn't some heretical notion or something like that. You just got to, this is why I'm not a systematician. You just got to go with the flow on some of this stuff. And you have to realize there are several possibilities, and you can't foreclose that. You can't foreclose that possibility. So, level 2 is, as I say, kind of where you make your theological money, because that's where the good stuff happens. And as I mentioned, I think when we were doing this last night, as I mentioned, that's the issue with infant baptism. See, with infant baptism, we don't have a passage in so many words. We got level 2, but we don't have level 1. And that bothers people. Doesn't bother me, because I'm used to reading on level 2. But it bothers people greatly. Now, what do we have on level 2? Well, we have statements like, all people have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Everybody's a sinner. And we have statements such as, God would have all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. And we know that baptism is a washing of regeneration, which generating applies to everybody, especially little people. So you put all these together. You're old enough to remember my next phrase, in the post-treat pack. Remember that? You can get those, the post-treat pack, where you get the little boxes of cereal with all the different things together like that. Yeah, so put them all together in the post-treat pack, and I think you come up with the right thing. But you can't prove it in so many words. That's okay. That's okay. If you believe it is legit to interpret on level 2. And it is. We do it all the time. Now let's look at level 3. I like to call this implication. Luke includes the resurrection story in his gospel. Indeed, he is the only gospel writer to do so. Does that tell us something about Luke or his audience? In other words, what am I saying here? The fact that he included the story. Not the meaning of the story. The fact that he included the story. In other words, the fact that Luke deals with this matter may reveal something about him and his time. Perhaps the problem of the death of believers was acute. Perhaps there was a question concerning who Jesus was and what he could do. The fact that something is discussed at all tends to imply things about the writer and or his audience. Thus we may, sometimes people call it this, reading between the lines. Okay? We may read between the lines for information regarding the author and his audience and his place and time. So let's call this read between the lines. Here, the signifier read is the fact of the author writing a text with its given sense or significance. Now you remember 2 weeks ago when we started on this, I said a good example is in the Gospel of Matthew, where he keeps saying, this happened in order that the Scriptures might be fulfilled. This happened in order that Hinnom Plerothe, in order that the Scriptures might be fulfilled. Well, people have concluded from this that he's writing for a Jewish audience who would be concerned about the Scripture. Where's that? That's reading between the lines. Now you're reading the implication of the fact that the guy's concerned about something. Or that he's... Now, what I find interesting about that particular example, which is, I would say, de rigueur, for people who do a New Testament. What's interesting about that example is I think you could read it in exactly the opposite way. You could read it like this. Matthew was a Gentile, writing for Gentile believers. He had discovered the wonders of the Old Testament, of the Scriptures, and wanted to make that plain to everybody. See, why isn't that level 3 reading? You can do it that way. So now we come to the, you want to take a picture?
Yes.
This is the Voelz nuclear cooling tower. Now, you basically get here in terms of surety, in terms of what you feel you can be confident of. Yet, work down the cooling tower. You can be pretty confident at the top because we have linguistic grammars and dictionaries. Here, you have life experience, and you have sometimes, like in the Luke passage here, you have level 1 passages right next to level 2 that help you to explain it. Okay? So God has visited his people. But you know, you're still not necessarily sure about the rending of the veil. When you get to level 3, it's a crapshoot. Because now you're just trying to read between the lines and figure out what the heck is going on in the generation of the document. So if I could put that there, when you're reading between the lines, you are sort of talking here about the genesis of the document. Something like this. Luke was writing this way because his community was concerned about young people dying who were Christians. You know, something like that. See? But, so you're talking then about document production. Maybe instead of Genesis, I should use the word production. The production of the document. And that's particularly tricky when the document production is so far away. C.S. Lewis once said, after every one of the books that I published, the people who did reviews in the Times of London would hypothesize what caused me to write the book, what I was concerned about when I wrote the book. And he said, every time they were wrong. Now, he went on to say, and this is what's important, he said, if they live at the same time, in the same culture, and spoke the same language and couldn't get it right, what chance that we are right when we are millennia removed in a different culture and speak a different language? This is why what is so important is to have this big dose of humility when it comes to reading on level 3 in particular. In fact, you better draw, some people have really scored the volume 1 of my Mark commentary by the fact that I said, well, I don't know that it really makes all that much difference who his audience was or who wrote it. I'm just going to interpret it. It's going to talk about the story of Jesus. Some guys got all excited about that. You don't know. I mean, Papias says it was done in Rome around the mid-60s. That's good enough for me. It's a little level 1 evidence right there. See? So to hypothesize, it's about 75 and it's done in Antioch and it's good. Where do you get all that stuff? You have no idea. You really have no idea. So as you work down the cooling tower, you're still going to have problems here. I can show you that. But at least most of the time it's okay. Here, we know the biblical story. We can do okay. And this is the problem. Now, what I wanted to say, I was going to expand on this just a little bit, but are there any questions or comments here about the basic 3? Are you adjusting the camera or raising your hand?
I am following you.
Okay, all right.
It's a tough job.
All right. Now, let me give you, I have a couple of notes here that I worked up in preparation for this. Sticking on level 2, which I think is the most interesting by far. Take a look, if you would please, at Mark 1. This looks like a really tame passage. Mark 1:14.
Just 14?
Yep.
Now after John was arrested, Jesus came into Galilee proclaiming the gospel of God.
All right, now, what's the meaning of Jesus going into Galilee? Consider, who arrested John the Baptist? Herod Antipas. Where did Herod Antipas rule? Galilee. So after John is arrested, Jesus goes to the place of the very guy who is hostile to people preaching the Word of God. What's the meaning of this going there? Does that mean he's going in your face, Harry? You're not going to stop the preaching of God's word? Or does it mean something like, forget Herod, Jesus is going to continue John the Baptist's ministry? Does it have no particular meaning? I mean, it's just a reference to Jesus went to Galilee to preach after John was taken, and there's kind of no significance to it. What are you doing here? See, you're trying to figure this out, but there's no in so many words about it. In general, people who can operate well on level 2 stuff. Like, say, a guy who can preach with this. Pastor Punky does as well. Often you'll hear laymen say something like this. Boy, that guy can really interpret the text for all it's worth. See, that's what they mean by that. Is you're getting meaning from more than the articulation on level 1. Okay? All right, second. One place I always have difficulty with seminarians when I talk about this is that they mistake, and this is why I don't like really to use the word levels. I use that very early on as I talk about it. Aspects is probably better, and I use that on this page here. Because it's really not deeper as you go down. Because you'll hear seminarians say something like this. Well, Prof, I heard you say such and such. Were you on level 5 there? So, well, it's not, it doesn't mean it like that. It's just orders of signifiers. That's all it is. It's what am I reading for significant, for me? What am I reading for me? Am I reading the marks on the page? Am I reading the deeds that arise in my mind from the marks on the page? Am I reading the fact that somebody's talking about it as having an implication? So it's not like you go this way, it's getting deeper. It's just a different order of signifiers. That's actually a pretty important point. And then, let's just ignore for right now level 3. I'm going to take it away. With these 2 levels, in general, I think I just mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. In general, the epistles do their theology on level 1. The Gospels do their theology on level 2. Okay? But this means that hermeneutically, the epistles tend to be the key for our understanding of the meaning of the deeds of the gospel. So, Jesus says, it is finished, and dies on the cross. Well, he never tells you what's finished. Now, Paul says, God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. See? So, now you start to have a level 1 thing in 2 Corinthians 5. Paul saying God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself. Which helps you to interpret the death on the cross. So, hermeneutically, now I'm going to switch colors here. So, hermeneutically, you go from level 1 to level 2. However, theologically, going from level 2 to level 1 because there is no reconciling of people apart from, in other words, God didn't reconcile the world to himself with words, right? Jesus acted in history. So this is why Pastor Punky preaches on the gospel. Why? It's the foundation. So this is why, for example, the Pentateuch is the foundation of the Old Testament. You have creation, you have redemption, okay? You have these great deeds. Now, the prophets who excoriate sin and comfort people are clearer in a sense, but they build, don't they? They build on the great actions of God in history. Where do we get depictions of the actions of God in history? In the Gospels. In the Gospels. So, since the work of God in deeds is the foundation, the Gospels are the foundation for our faith. They are not, now listen, I'm going to say this. I mean, we are thinking big thoughts here, okay? The Gospels are the foundation of our faith. They are not, however, the interpretive, hermeneutical foundation for our faith that we find in the epistles. Because the epistles are doing their theology in so many words. And that helps us to understand God's needs. Yeah.
I don't want to get off on the wrong
No.
thing here, but when you were back in Mark,
Yeah.
where does meaning the context of the verse come into all this? Because this, if you go on and read the next verse, it gives you more meaning. That thinking about God is that him, you can't believe in the gospel.
Right, but remember, I was talking specifically about him going to Galilee. In other words, not just Jesus preaching about the kingdom, but he went into Galilee and did. Is there a meaning about him going to Galilee? See, there's the problem. That's what I'm saying. I'm just looking, this is sort of a curse that I bear, to be honest with you, Jen, is just small details fascinate me. You know, why does it say that? You know, for example, let me just show you another thing about small details. Here, take a look at Mark. This didn't strike me until I started working on the commentary. Take a look at Mark in chapter 14. Verse 18. 14 in Mark, verse 18. Yes, Jim, this is in the New Testament.
The papers keep going back.
Yeah.
You get old.
Yeah, I know. This is the same problem I have. Fine motor skills. Okay, go ahead.
14 what?
18.
14, 18.
Yeah.
Okay. Another good question. And as they were reclining at table and eating, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." That's right, really?
Yeah, no, hold on. We got to go for 19. I need 19 and 20. Sorry.
Okay. They began to be sorrowful and to say to him one after another, "Is it I?" He said to them, "It is one of the 12, one who is dipping bread into the dish with me."
Well, if he says one of the 12, there's got to be more people. Right? Well, I mean, isn't that interesting? You just kind of blow right by that. But that story, though, that painting, and we have one over there, of the Last Supper is wrong. There's got to be more people there. Otherwise, you don't say one of the 12. So these little features like this, you got to sort of be paying attention all the time to these little things that the gospel writers are doing. Whether they're conscious of it or not, I'm going to get onto that in a few weeks. Like, for example, was Mark thinking something about Jesus going away into Galilee? I don't have any idea. You don't have to know that. Okay, now, yeah.
I want to make a quick comment.
Yeah.
You didn't have to know Greek in order to read one of the 12 and start asking questions.
That's right. That's right. And by the way,
Or even came into Galilee.
yes.
There's nothing secret or hidden in the Greek text that we can't see.
Very perceptive. Okay, that's good. This is why, Richard, you find out, this didn't occur to me until I was doing stuff, doing interpretation and so on, and working on this for a number of years, that this is one of the reasons why pastors who have kind of let their languages go can sort of do a good job in sermons, because even if you're working from a translation, you still might be able to get lots of level 2 stuff. Now, you're going to miss a bunch of level 1 stuff, but level 2 doesn't always ride on the fine details of level 1. That's very perceptive. Very perceptive. Yes, very good. Okay. So, hermeneutically, this is a really important move right here, that we realize we need the whole scriptures together, so to speak. Now, the last thing I was going to say is going back to level 3. Level 3 is essentially where the so-called historical critical method resides. Because in the historical critical method, people were continually fascinated by document production and are worried about things like, are there 5 sources to the Pentateuch? The synoptic problem, who's using which gospel and how are they using it? That's slumming on level 3. That's slumming on level 3. My biggest argument against the historical critical method is that it is fundamentally twisted as a way of reading texts. Notice I didn't talk about the Bible. I'm talking about texts. You don't read texts like this. You don't read Homer's Odyssey to figure out what was happening in Homer's poetic community. See? So the trouble with it is fundamentally wrong-headed in terms of what you think is valuable about the Bible as a narrative. It is not some backdoor insight into the early church. It is a depiction of the reign and rule of God in Jesus Christ. That's what it is in the New Testament. And the workings before that Old Testament. So, this is why one of the most significant works that I have ever read, it's one of the top 10 books I've ever read, it is still in print. 1974, Yale University Press by Hans Frey. And it is entitled, in my graduate courses, in my graduate hermeneutics course, the first book we read. It's the first book we read. And it is called The Eclipse of Biblical Narrative. Katie Beth, if do you have like a religion or theology department or something?
We do.
Yeah. Ask one of your teachers there if they know about Hans Frey, Eclipse of Biblical Narrative. Yale, 1974. Now, the idea of this book, and why he calls it that, is he basically says that the narrative, the story of the Bible, and he's looking at the New Testament basically, has simply become eclipsed by trying to figure out what stands behind the narrative. And pretty soon, you're not reading the story. Like the question that I had about, what about why is he going into Galilee? See? Or what's the meaning of the water into wine? Or the tearing of the veil? You miss that whole thing when you're fooling around on level 3 all the time. And even conservatives have a problem with this by trying to use the narrative to reconstruct what really happened in the life of Jesus. There is no what really happened. Here's what we have. We have 4 narratives. And those are the ones that give us meaning about it. In other words, our faith is not in a 5th gospel. The 5th gospel being entitled, What Really Happened Historically. See? No. When the people receive the Gospel of Mark, they're not running around with the Gospel of John in their hands. So, these books are preaching to you on level 1 and level 2. And that's what you receive. And we believe that this is the inspired and inerrant Word of God. But our point of working with them isn't to try to figure out something else than what they're doing in the story. So, I mean, this is so, unfortunately, this book is written by a German who was teaching at Yale. And sadly, was writing in English. The book is only marginally understandable unless you have had a couple of glasses of wine or something. And everybody says, you know, it just would have been better if Hans Frey had written the book in German. Yeah, you know, or if you can read German, read the book in German, you know. But somehow it's sort of English and German at the same time or something like this. But Eclipse is an extremely significant text in the history of biblical studies. Look, that book's over 40 years old, and that sucker's still being published yet because it is so significant. See? Now, one of the things that he said in there, I'm anticipating a little bit, but I'm going to tell you the most important point. If you just read Krauss, if you just read the introduction, it's about the first 50, 60 pages, you can kind of get the basic gist of it. Is what he says was, before the Enlightenment, people felt that the Bible depicted reality, and we understood ourselves by placing ourselves into the biblical story. But with the Enlightenment, there became, and this is the Hans Frey term, put this down, Katie, this is important, a reversal of the direction of interpretation. Sometimes called a reversal of fit. But the reversal of direction of interpretation. And Mike, here, what's significant about this is conservatives did the same thing as liberals. And this is one of his great insights. And that is, by reversal of direction of interpretation, he means now we use our understanding of the world as the baseline and then try to fit what was happening in the Bible into that. I mean, an obvious case would be something like this, people saying, oh, well, when Jesus healed demonic people, that's really mental illness, or something like that. See, the direction of fit is you fit the Bible into your world, not your world into the biblical world. And he said, even conservatives did that as they tried to, as they occupied themselves more and more with things like explaining contradictions of the Bible and stuff like that. Because when you do that, you're missing the story. Now you're worried about we know X. And I mean, a perfect example is Luke 2:2, okay? That this enrollment by Caesar Augustus was made when Quirinius was governor of Syria. We have no proof of that whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, Quirinius was governor much later. Well, so what? There's an explanation to this. Okay? Luke doesn't make mistakes. There's an explanation for this. If your fascination with this text is figuring out how you fit Luke's account into the account of Josephus, you have reversed the direction of fit. You can't do that. Now, it's much... I'm just going to full cry. You can't... It's worse with liberals. Because the thing with liberals is they have an intellectual understanding of reality, and the Bible and its message has to fit that. All right? And so the big bugaboo comes with Baruch Spinoza in the 17th century. Put that down, Katie. Baruch Spinoza in the 17th century, a Jewish interpreter from Holland. And he was the first guy who started talking, he was really working with the Old Testament, who really started talking about the fact that we have understanding of truths apart from revelation, and the so-called specific revelation of the Bible has to accommodate itself to our understanding of the truths. That is the essence of the Enlightenment. That is the essence of the Enlightenment. That our natural understanding provides, how should we say this, Richard? The foundation, the baseline, that's what I'm looking for, the baseline for understanding. And so then we start to get, a la the founding fathers of our country, we start to get Enlightenment versions of Christianity where the truths become general religious truths. Okay? Now, a little far afield here, but once I get onto this, I can't be restrained. And this is so important when you realize what's kind of controlling your interpretation, So we started out at level 1 and level 2, but now we're talking about putting this all in a little bigger picture. We're anticipating a few things. Jim?
I just want to know if the term is right for what you're talking about here. Magisterial approach, where man puts his reason above the revelation of the Scripture. Is that the right reason of the term?
Yes. But as long as you don't think of that too simplistic. I mean, I'm not going to say no to that. I think you are correct. Right? But I don't know that you need to be thinking of that as, people sitting there thinking, we know better than the Bible. It's not like that. Because, see, even conservatives have made this mistake. Voelz is kind of like this, where you're not thinking that you're exalting anything over the Bible or whatever. you know. But your view of the world now starts to, I mean, just think of this phrase that I've been using. This is the important phrase. The direction of interpretation. The reversal of direction of interpretation. So Jim, you know, I mean, it's even something as simple as something like this. You're looking at the Gospels and the miracles, and you're thinking, boy, I don't know, with demonized point out, was that really epilepsy? See, the minute you're making that kind of a move, you're fitting the Bible into ours. I'm not saying you should be simplistic or whatever, but there is an essential, what would you say? Up until the Enlightenment, there's an essential naivete about taking the Bible's frame of the world. There are angels, there are devils, there is a second coming. Okay? Jesus' succession at the right hand of God. See, this is a description of reality as such. Okay? How many Sunday morning Bible classes are talking about reality as such, right? But this is sort of a description of reality as such, and we understand ourselves and our lives, what's happening, let's say, against the background of a world in which there are angels, and Satan, and so on. Or do we try to explain away Satan or something? And see, you don't have to be snarky about it or anything. It can be a very natural move. And it's almost impossible, I think I would almost say this. Once you are an heir, H-E-I-R, once you are an heir of the Enlightenment, it's almost impossible not to be a child of the Enlightenment. Now, and we're going to end with this thought. This, surprisingly, is where postmodernism actually has a positive point. We will, in subsequent weeks, talk about this. Because what it does is question the Enlightenment notion of objective understandings of reality, see? Which allows you to return to a pre-Enlightenment understanding. Very interesting issue. That's why I'm not nearly as negative as a lot of people on that. Okay, now, man, we go on stuff. Great. All right.
I'm glad that you are stopping on that, but I want to keep going with it. Because it's easy for us to think that we are not children of the Enlightenment.
Yes.
Because we sit, especially conservative Lutherans, look at liberation theology and feminist theology and this theology, and they say, oh, they're just reading their own interpretations into the Bible, and we sit back and say, we don't do that. But all you need to do is look at the evangelical, how to get A's in school. That's what the Bible's about. And we're reading our culture into that. Or our perceptions of dating and marriage is the biblical reflection of how reality is supposed to be. It shows up all the time. And we are, as you say, children of that. We have inherited that. And it's very difficult to avoid that we've got the perfect understanding, and you sit back into the Bible and we'll show that.
The arising of, we're talking here about Hans Frey's Eclipse of Biblical Narrative, and the notion of the reversal of interpretation of either you put yourself into the Bible story and the Bible story into your understanding of the Bible. But on the most what you're pointing out here, on the most fundamental level, we sort of resist the Bible's world or something like that. Because of this, it's partly, now, I mean, there's been a lot of good to it, what I'm going to say now, but bad also, is this independence of science from what you might call a theological framework or something like that. So, these are huge questions And Mike, we will end on this point. This is why you need a hermeneutics course. Because at some point, somebody's got to talk about the reversal of interpretation. And it's not obvious. That's what Hans Fry makes really plain. And he shows, this bothers my students, because he shows how conservative interpreters fell into the same trap. Yeah. Okay, well, great. Hey, listen, thanks a lot. Go over and get some brats and stuff like that. I'm out of town next week. I'm going to be teaching 2-weeker. We'll be reading Hans Fry, Advanced Hermeneutics, the PhD stuff.